AoM is hard to understand, but if I do, then, well, this is what I mean. Unfortunately, there's many variations of it, because we have so many reboots and so many titles at this point that 25 plus years of pathfinding problems with C++. About me, I'm Raimi. I'm the engineering director at Forgotten Empires and a long-time Age of Empires fan that basically got lost in the code base that is older than I am. I worked on most of the reboots of the legacy titles and a little bit on the Age of Empires. Now, I will try not to use these abbreviations. I will try to use full names because AoE and AoM is hard to understand. But if I do, then well, this is what I mean. Unfortunately, there's many variations of it because we have so many reboots and so many titles at this point that it's a bit complicated. Now, if I talk about legacy, I talk about the original release of the game back in 1999 or well, around, because all these games have their own release dates. But I will mostly be focusing about Age of Empires 2. And the reboots will be all the remakes. Alright, problems. There's so many ways things can go wrong in pathfinding, especially in Age of Empires. Take us to it. Starting with the community feedback, that's the stuff that we need to work with. That's the feedback that we get from our users. Unfortunately, it's almost always negative. Yeah, they like to bash on the pathfinding a little bit, but rightfully so. Now, some of this feedback is better than the others. When they compare it to legacy or a previous patch, then we get some indication, okay, we have a regression from last patch that must have happened in the last few months. When they give a reproduction case, then, well, that's great, then we know where to look for, or we can try to reproduce it ourselves. But in Age of Empires, we also have a thing called replays. Our simulation is heuristic, and use replays to play back a game that happened. And if they provide us a replay and the time when the pathfinding is bad, then we have a perfect reproduction case. So that's amazing if they do that. Then the next one. So unfortunately, Age of Empires pathfinding is not something we used to. Now it's what is pathfinding, what is easy, what is hard. Well, in Age of Empires 2, units bump other units. They stop, they repath, and they basically try to go around it. They just repeat this until they reach their target or goal. We do not allow for pushing. We also do not allow for overlap, with the exception of formations. Formations allow overlap between friendly units inside that formation. So it makes it a little bit easier, but now we also need to handle formations themselves, which adds more complexity, because now we have two movement systems that need to interact with each other, and yeah, it just gets a bit more complicated. Maps are also fully random and fully dynamic, so every tile on the map can change. At least we are somewhat grid-based, so units do not stick to the grid, but all our obstructions like buildings and water does. Stay away! Now, if we take StarCraft 2, for example, that's what we strive as, like, that's good pathfinding. Players are generally happy with that pathfinding. StarCraft 2 simplified it well. They went for fixed maps, they went for steering behaviors, which I think is just a better approach to the problem. And they also allow for small overlaps and units sliding past each other. And that feels a lot better, and it looks also a bit better, even though this example is not exactly the same example. It's a way more complex example, and it's handling it pretty well. So why do we not just do StarCraft 2? Well, we're working on the reboots and remasters. We're not really making new games. It's not that easy to retrofit everything to StarCraft 2 pathfinding, so we would have to rewrite most of the gameplay code if we wanted to do that. We did actually try that in one of the remakes in Age of Mythology Retold. We tried to approach it with a void algorithm. We had mixed results with it. And on top of this, the community does hate on the pathfinding a lot, but they kind of love it as well. And I have an example of this. It's basically a scene where, basically the knights are attacking the villagers, and the other players quickly putting up some houses to block them, and in the last moment he moves his fishing ship in the path of the knights, and the knights are blocked. This happens in a lot of games, but this specific clip was extra impressive because the player that was actually doing this was using a controller to emulate his mouse and still managed to pull this off. Now, I would not even be able to pull off the first thing if I had a keyboard and mouse, but yeah. We would have missed out on a lot of gems in the gameplay if we would have gone with different pathfinding.
Your friend seems quick
Next
to lead
up.
us to danger.
Erosion of
Knowledge of my
knowledge. Now,
past
this
is
happens a
worth
lot
any
in
trial.
C++ projects that go over decades. And Age of Empires is one of those. The code base is more than 25 years old at the moment. And yeah, I would say we do not have the worst case scenario. Some of the original developers were around for a while during the development. At the moment, there's none of them, as far as I know. Some of the developers actually wrote articles, and you can still find them online. I linked them on the slides. If you Google for those titles, you can find them.
A fortification of my house,
They left comments.
made in
They
stones of memory.
wrote quite a bit of logging, actually. So I think for legacy code standards, this is great, although I've only worked on 5-6 code bases that were legacy code, so I can't judge for all the code bases, but I don't think it's that. Now, of course, development happened for more than 20 years. Multiple teams touched the code base, and the pathfinding was always a bit modified. And on top of this, when we got our code drop, we actually lost the source history. We just never got the source history. So, and I'm saying at least once, because it might have happened before, but I wasn't around in the other teams, so I don't know. So maybe once, maybe twice, I don't know. On top of this, the community also created their own patch for the game, for the original game. They reverse engineered the executable and just changed the assembly and made the pathfinding actually better. Unfortunately, the guy that was responsible for these changes disappeared, and we never got these changes. So the community is taking that patch as the golden standard of pathfinding, and we didn't have it, which meant that when we started, we were basically down 3-0 already. Now, development from our side, we're also not perfect. We tried to fix some of it.
It is so fine a
the
gift.
classic. You fix a bug, you get 3 more. It happens. You introduce some regressions, you reverse it, and you try to do better. But we also had something that I call ritual programming. When you implement a new feature, you forget to do X, Y, Z because it's just some functions that you use.
Come here!
It's not documented anywhere, the code doesn't error or anything. You just need to remember. Alright, now,
Why do we
how
chase
does
these
the pathfinding
dreams?
actually work?
They offer no answers, only more questions!
I'm only going to be
These are
talking
not
about the short-range pathfinding algorithm, which is about 10% of the whole problem. So you can probably deduce from that how big of an actual problem the whole pathfinding is. So the shortcomings of this pathfinding algorithm is that it's unfortunately undocumented. There's no articles on it, there's no documentation on it. And besides that, it's not performant enough, and it functions most of the time. Sometimes it actually breaks. So how does it actually work? Yeah, between those 2 points. So we make this square, which they and we get the obstructions. Now in Age of Empires, all the obstructions are rectangles, active counts. That gives us something to work with that is a bit simpler. Next step is we shrink the pathing unit back to a point, and we add what we shrunk back to all the other obstructions. This is just something logically to simplify the problem. Now we don't have the path with a rectangle around the obstruction, we just have the path with a point. Then we create a convex hole around the obstruction. Now, here's a starting point to the same goal as our goal point. In this case, it's not the case. What we do, we try to escape the starting goal. And we do this by shooting cardinal rays, so in 4 directions. If we hit an obstruction, we shoot cycles. And we keep bouncing until we actually escape our cycle. Now, we've escaped the problem. We're now going to walk around the convex hole. And at every vertex of this convex hole, so at every point, we are going to try and shoot a ray towards our goal. If we hit an obstruction, we repeat the process. We walk the hole again and shoot rays towards the goal until we reach our goal. And the final step is actually just some path smoothing. We just brute force try to remove points and see if our resulting path overlaps with any obstructions. And then the white line is our final path. Now, there is some edge cases that we need to handle. What if our goal is in the same hull as we started or in another hull? There we do something that looks a little bit like bidirectional pathfinding. So we start at our goal and we just repeat the same thing as we started with our start position. We shoot cardinal rays until we escape out of our convex hull. And then we link up the path and you get our path again. Now what is our escape? We hit back and we try again. Now, what if we are so there is not actually a path? Now this is just worst case. We search area, we expand the search area, then we do our random bounds, starting orders, and we do this until 64 iterations. Or if there's no more unique vertices to try. Now, when I discovered this, I was like, okay, how did this ship performantly in 1999? Apparently, this was good enough. Like the code is not written in a performance way, but what they did is they had some really good high order. So for long-range path, we use different algorithms, mid-max ASR algorithm, which is lazy. And now, this algorithm, unfortunately,
That halfling golem will betray us to the Black Hand the first chance he gets.
He has no love for the Dark Lord.
Houses or any type of
That creature has a part to play in the fate of all Middle-earth.
Now, this turned out to be a classroom example of geometrical precision errors. So when you have the gift wrapping algorithm to create a convex hull, and you have 2 points that are very close to each other, or if they're collinear, so almost on a perfect line, the algorithm does not have enough precision to say, to function. And the way the gift wrapping algorithm basically works, it takes 3 points and it decides, are we making a left turn or are we making a right turn? If we're making a left turn, then we can discard the middle point. If we're going a right turn, then, well, we must keep this point. Age of Empires 2, 3, and Age of Mythology all suffered from this problem. Now, one thing is weird though, that, well, for some reason they started to occur more recently. And we didn't know why. Now, how does this look in our example case? So collinear, these points are almost on the line. It's hard for me even to say if they're making a left turn or a right turn. For computers, they are probably a little bit better at that than I am, but they can also not answer this correctly in every single case. Sometimes the floating point precision is just too low and you get a slightly wrong answer, but for this algorithm you always must have a correct answer. And then the result could be something like this, that our convex hull does not encapsulate all the obstructions, it actually cuts through the obstructions. Now, and what we remember is that if we walk the convex hull to create our path, now this path goes straight to the obstruction. This now crosses the obstruction and our unit will phase through anything that obstruction used to be. Now, there's ways to actually fix this. So Age of Empires 2 developers themselves probably run into this issue because I found this code that actually tries to remove points that are very close to each other. However, this does not fix all the cases. So it was still possible to get the problem. It was just very rare. Then in Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition, another developer actually also ran into this issue and tried to improve it by upping the floats and promoting the floats into doubles. So now you have 64 bits of a variable that has more precision basically. This again did not fix the issue, which just made it harder to reproduce. Which is still an improvement because now the players suffer less. So. Now, I know another game that also has a community that complains about pathfinding issues. And, well, we sometimes also walk through walls in this game. So it might not just be Age of Empires that's having this problem. Yeah, I have another case. This was actually my brother that reproduced this one. And said to me, I was like, all right. Now, are we at a dead end? Because, well, the original developers run into an issue, tried to fix it. Other developers tried to fix it. Other channels might have tried to fix it. And there's just very little information on trying to solve problems like this in a 100% guaranteed way. Now, one day, I was trying to just fix this bug, and I disabled the compiler optimization in Age of Mythology, the Extended Edition. And I didn't do this by switching to debug mode. I did this by actually going to the compiler and turning off all the flags that I thought were optimizations. And that was a crucial difference, because I accidentally also switched off the CMD instructions, which resulted the compiler to fall back to IA32 instructions.
Can't talk today,
Now,
Anivho.
why did this fix this? There's a thing called 80-bit floating point precision. It's, they refer to extended precision. Old hardware, when they did floating point calculations, they would use
Saia some order
extra
day.
wide
I'll
registers
try
basically
Thursday
to store
complete the
extra
game.
precision in their floating point calculations. This would only work for intermediate results. And then the CMD wrecking ball came. A decision was made to actually drop this extended precision and trade it off for performance. Now, this was probably a good decision, because if you need to remember that you can use your extra precision only in intermediate variables of registers, it's kind of hard to work with, because the moment you store it into a float variable just temporarily, you lose it. Or if you run out of register space, you lose it as well. So it's not very obvious when you have the precision and when you don't. So it's probably for the better that we're moving away from it. But it always leaves me wondering, like, how many applications have run into this problem where one developer one day decided, I want more performance, and did not know that they also were trading in precision. Now, hands up if you actually knew that when you enabled CMD instructions, you would lose your floating point precision. I didn't, so. And apparently other developers as well. Now, on top of this, we executed the perfect crime. So, the previous companies, somewhere around their development time, they enabled the CMD flag, and they didn't notice that this introduced pathfinding regressions. Now, we came along and we actually disabled the CMD flag, but we also ported the game to 64-bit. Now, 64-bit defaults to CMD enabled. So we covered up that the flag would actually cause the issue. So there was no way, on top of this, we didn't have the source control of the source history anymore. But it was already not possible. But yeah, we also covered it up perfectly. So if I didn't randomly decided to turn it off, we would probably still be looking for the cause of this. So I'm adding this to the list because we technically also regressed this. But yeah, in the end, the community feedback was probably they were right, basically, because they always claimed that Pathfinder was worse now than in Legacy. And even though everyone claimed not to have touched it, we accidentally still touched it in some way. So it finally makes sense how they did it. Now, how do we fix this? It actually started as a side project because I kind of already had given up on trying to fix the precision issue because I could not find any resources on how to make robust complex walls. It would either cost a lot of performance or have to correct all different precision variables or just give up. So I thought, well, okay, maybe we just promoted the doubles and filtered out the close points and it might be just good. But I still wanted to improve the performance issue because, the random bouncing around for 64 times, it's not ideal. There's a lot of n-squared complexity that you run into there. So in big battlefields with like hundreds of units, it scales quite poorly. Now, Age of Mythology actually iterated on the algorithm by replacing the random bouncing with a concave hole. So after they generated the convex roll, you have out of the convex roll to regenerate a concave hole. And that solves the problem. You don't have to randomly bounce anymore. You can just follow the concave hole. But it unfortunately also suffered from precision errors because it was again geometry and it again relied on perfect precision. So now that algorithm had two phases where it could go wrong, and the community already knew that pathfinding in Age of Mythology was more likely to get units stuck than in Age of Mythology 2. Now, can we do better? Now, what I thought was we're merging rectangles, and there's a lot of ways you can actually do this. I know that there is some union with Boolean operations that you can do. There is some research on it. I could not find something that would work exactly with the expansion of the radius, because every unit can have a different radius size, so then it's a dynamic size that you have to control. So it's either Boolean operations are like pre-calculated, which we cannot use in our case.
Concentration time. Maku needs Torstai go.
What is it? Keep your eyes up or he'll drop on you! Face me, maggot! Right side! So I'll kill you, and you come back? Don't seem very smart. You... Clear off, you're useless! Jason! I won't be tricked by that! No, I think not! You idiot! Not a chance! You and me now! Think I won that race?
Miksi saa maku koku AEG vidad?
What are these towers of silver?
They are lights to guide us in the land of shadow, where all other lights may fail. Pale reflections of the light of the two trees, and memories of a lost kingdom.
Damn you maku, I'll get ya one day. But that day is not today. Buene.